Hello everyone! Today I'd like to bring to your attention another old film that I consider to be underrated. A film you may or may not have heard of before, 1960's The Hypnotic Eye. A detective is investigating a bizarre string of cases in which beautiful women inexplicably mutilate themselves. After volunteering at a hypnotist's performance, his girlfriend's friend becomes the latest victim, but she has no recollection of what happened to her. Suspecting that the hypnotist might have something to do with it, the detective's girlfriend decides to do a little investigating, using herself as bait. I saw this movie the first time several years ago, and it's always stuck with me. It doesn't have monsters or big scares or anything like that, but it's a horror movie nonetheless, concerned with mind control and sinister intentions, along with the suggestion of disturbing self-mutilation. Its first scene immediately grabs your attention. A young woman saunters into her home and calmly starts lathering her hair with shampoo over the stove. She then, just as calmly, cranks up the gas, and the flames leap at her foamy head. This crazy, startling introduction, with a pretty good special effect, is one of the best, most intriguing opening 60 seconds I've ever seen. Produced by Allied Artists, The Hypnotic Eye was directed by George Blair, who mostly did work on television, directing westerns and adventure films. It was co-written by siblings Gita and William Reed Woodfield. William Reed Woodfield is most known today as a photographer of Hollywood stars, but he was also a screenwriter and producer, and, more to the point, he had a side interest in magic. Not the same as hypnotism, but close enough. Starring as Desmond the Hypnotist is French actor Jacques Bergerac. Playing his assistant Justine is Allison Hayes, who had starred in Attack of the 50-Foot Woman 2 years earlier. The detective Dave Kennedy is played by Joe Partridge, and his girlfriend Marcia is played by Marcia Henderson. This film features some interesting effects and visuals. In addition to the noteworthy opening, which has the POV shot from under the burner, there are a couple cool shots from the inside of a sink when the next victim, played by Mary Anders, runs water from the tap and starts washing her face, unaware she's doing so with sulfuric acid. The makeup department did a pretty good job on the deformities. Nothing spectacular, you're not going to get blown away, but more than serviceable. The script alludes to some dark means of self-mutilation, and the ways that the scars are revealed are effective. When confronted with a face ominously covered in bandages, channeling the Twilight Zone's Eye of the Beholder episode, or a woman concealing herself behind a heavy lace curtain, the viewer can't help feeling that dread of the unknown. The reveals are meant to be alarming, even possibly grotesque, but after the initial shock, you immediately feel compassion for these poor women who have lost their youth, beauty, and confidence, and in some cases, even more than that. One woman is blind, another has damaged her trachea, and a third is a recluse whose husband and children have left her. It's sad, really, and it makes the need to stop whatever nefarious plot is going on more urgent. One question the viewer keeps asking is, what's the motive here? Is Desmond behind some kind of mutilation plot? And if so, why? He seems to be a charming guy who likes the ladies, so what's really going on? I'm not going to tell you. This is a spoiler-free review. Many shots show the actors looking straight into the camera. The more prolonged this is, the more unsettling it becomes, and when it's Bergerac doing it, you end up staring back as Desmond essentially hypnotizes you along with his subject. Be careful you don't stare too long and hard, especially when he pulls out the so-called hypnotic eye, the intense flashing device of the title. I bet if this film were released today, theaters would have to post a warning about the bright strobing light. Personally, I am not a fan of hypnotism. I don't think that it's a good idea to surrender complete control of your body or your mind to another person. And while there are those who use hypnotism with the best of intentions as a medical or therapeutic treatment, and it has helped some people, there are other hypnotists in the entertainment industry, for example, who have gained a profit from making fools of people in public, allegedly without their knowledge. Side note, Desmond does assure his audience and his volunteers, especially the ladies, that they will not be embarrassed or made uncomfortable, and I really appreciate that. At the end of my senior year of high school, before our graduation, my class had a special dinner, and the entertainment hired for the evening was a hypnotist. One of my friends, who was sitting at my table, volunteered to be one of his subjects. And yeah, he made all 10 or so kids who volunteered act very silly and out of character, and I laughed along with everybody else, while my classmates were being good-naturedly humiliated, but it made me uncomfortable. I was also skeptical and kept looking for proof that it was fake. I didn't find any, and if my friend had been approached to volunteer beforehand or had been faking her behavior, she never confessed it to me. What made the whole thing especially awkward, though, was that some of the stuff this guy had the supposedly unwitting subjects do ended up becoming somewhat sexual in nature. Thinking back on the ages of the people involved, the students and the hypnotist, I don't know what our chaperones, who were our teachers, were thinking. The fact that I have this natural skepticism and mistrust, and then that I had this experience, I think makes me enjoy the movie even more. It is arguing that hypnotism is a legitimate practice, but it's also encouraging you to question the honesty of the hypnotists themselves. A caution I am totally on board with. Trust no one. Anyway, back to the movie. I must say, I do enjoy the chemistry between Jacques Bergerac and Marcia Henderson. Her character, Marcia, pretends to be hypnotized and meets up with Desmond later per his instructions. But then, in spite of her earlier resistance, she seems to be overcome by the hypnotic eye. They spend the evening together wining and dining, and she then invites him to her place, and things get spicy. A pretty heated, amorous scene develops before they're interrupted, and adding to the danger, because we don't know if Desmond is the one behind these self-mutilations, is a feeling of illicitness, because her boyfriend, the detective, and his psychiatrist friend have been trailing them all night and are just outside, the boyfriend now going out of his mind. Another fun element is the beatnik sequence. Real-life nightclub owner Eric Big Daddy Nord, dubbed King of the Beat Generation, makes a cameo appearance here, playing the bongos while a recitation is performed by real-life beat poet Lawrence Lipton, who, incidentally, was the father of James Lipton of Inside the Actors Studio fame. The spoken word performance is about, of all things, the poet surpassing his old juvenile zeal for crowd-pleasing movies, especially scary ones, and graduating to the superiority of foreign art house films. I don't know if this smoky sequence with the poem in the Beat Cafe was meant to be comic relief or not, but I think it's funny, and it reminds me of Roger Corman's macabre satire of the beat scene in 59's A Bucket of Blood. Digging still deeper, The Hypnotic Eye is also a bit like a William Castle film, in the sense that there were some gimmicks and stunts used to hype up the audience. Promotional material heavily advertised a new feature called Hypnomagic, the thrill you see and feel. You might be led into thinking that this gimmick is something on par with Sense-Around for Earthquake, or Percepto for The Tingler, and you would be wrong. The hypnomagic part of the film is actually the weakest part, in my opinion, although maybe it was more interesting if you were an audience member in 1960. Simultaneously, the house lights were supposed to come up in the film and in the theater, as Desmond turns to the camera and starts issuing commands to both audiences, which are designed to illustrate the power of suggestion. I don't know if the live theater audiences ever actually followed his instructions. I probably wouldn't, because I'd feel too silly. Although, if everybody else is doing it, also the live audience, like the audience in the film, was given a special hypnotic eye balloon. And at the finale of the demonstration, they're supposed to blow it up. I'm kind of inept when it comes to blowing up balloons, so that wouldn't work for me either. And in real life, with that many people blowing up balloons, you know you'd hear at least one big bang! I say this sequence is the film's greatest weakness because it goes on for several minutes and interrupts the flow right before the exciting climax. It doesn't go on so long that it ruins the movie, but it hurts the momentum a bit. And it's already been established that Desmond is a skilled hypnotist, so it doesn't add anything. I guess it's just supposed to be fun to watch, and to join in if you want to, as he manipulates his audience into imitating his repetitive movements. When the film is over, the fictional psychiatrist comes out, warning the audience to be careful about hypnotism, who they go see, and under what circumstances. He then turns and addresses us, the viewers, with a cheeky last line, which is hokey, but, you know, it's the fun kind of hokey, like something William Castle would have done. Taking it a step further, Gil Boyne, hypnotherapy pioneer and eventual celebrity hypnotist, not only acted as a consultant for the film, he performed live shows between screenings and went on a press tour doing live demonstrations. They really wanted their subject matter to be taken seriously. And here's another fascinating bit of information I didn't know before. In a minor role as a surgeon with a reassuring bedside manner is Ferdinand Demara, credited as Fred Demara, known to audiences at the time as the Great Imposter. During the 40s and 50s, Demara assumed various identities, including a monk, a teacher, a surgeon on a Royal Canadian Navy destroyer in Korea, and the founder of a religious college. Demara's astonishing exploits came to light with his appearances on television in the late 50s. He then became the subject of a bestseller, The Great Imposter by Robert Crichton, which was adapted into a film starring Tony Curtis that premiered in late 1960. His casting as the Doctor in The Hypnotic Eye that same year was another publicity stunt. What's funny is that you'd think his cameo would make some reference to his somewhat notorious public image, but it doesn't, and he plays the role quite seriously and convincingly. All I thought when he was on screen was, he seems like a nice doctor. I quite enjoy this movie. I've been pleasantly surprised by it both times I've seen it. It's creative and engaging, a little sexy, a little humorous, well done for having a low to middle range budget, and effectively spooky. The music helps with that, a score composed by Marlon Skiles that features the good old theremin. I seldom hear anyone mention The Hypnotic Eye, and I've always remembered it fondly, so I wanted to give it a little extra attention. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have seen this movie, I'm curious to hear what you thought of it, so let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching!